Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ryan. Today we're going to be going over, this is brand new information. This is updated every 5 minutes from rivalsmeta.com. So I wanted to go over in comp specifically, like what are the characters that are winning the most, right? What are the characters that are winning the most? And I think this is really important to do because it kind of helps us keep a finger on the pulse to know, especially if we're trying to figure out what do we want to play, what are we going to pick, what are we going to main this season. So if you're going to break this down, we'll see kind of where these fall and what we think about it. Let's just dive right into it, okay? So in the S tier with a 57.6% win rate, we have Storm, okay? Storm obviously got a buff. She is dishing out some serious damage, and people aren't used to dealing with her ultimate yet either, especially in a comp environment. Like if you lived in comp last season, you probably didn't see too many storms. You probably didn't have to, you probably weren't forced into situations where you had to move around her ultimate and kind of spread out, fan out, force her to pick a target to go after. Because if you spread out, she's got to cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time. So, I think it's just a combination of Storm's being really good right now. And also, I mean, she's a flyer, right? She's a flyer. And if you notice, look at the other duelists that are on the list higher up. Like, you see Magic is up in here. You see Mr. Fantastic, Wolverine, Black Panther. So the other top 4 duelists, none of them are kitted out to take down a Storm. There's just not. Unless the Storm is really out of position, like these other characters are just not able to deal with Storm. So why is Storm on top? Boom, that's why. A, she's buffed. B, people aren't used to dealing with her. And C, all the other top duelists are not kitted out to deal with her when she's in position. So that's one of the reasons why Storm up on top. Now we've got a really interesting one. This is interesting to me because we got Rocket Raccoon. I think the reason for this really is just because Rocket has a higher ceiling than other strategists. Like I would probably argue that I would feel more comfortable if I loaded into a comp match in the higher tiers and I saw a Cloak and Dagger on my team, right? And that's because Cloak and Dagger, you look at her win rate, you look at their win rate, it's around 50%. That's because I think Cloak and Dagger has a lower ceiling, but it's much more approachable. It's a lot easier to just pick Cloak and Dagger and then play pretty well, you know what I'm saying? But what Rocket Raccoon can do when you really master him, he avoids death very easily. He's very squirrely, no pun intended, climbs walls, has a dash. But on top of that, it's about positioning, and a good Rocket Raccoon is able to keep his team in the fight and keep them in locations where they can easily access objective points. So the upper echelon of Rocket Raccoons, I think, are pulling the average up here. But all this to say, I think Rocket's ceiling is pretty high, comparatively speaking. Then we've got Invisible Woman. She's new. I think a lot of people are playing her. That's not to say she's bad. I think if I were to actually place her in a tier myself, I'd probably put her in the A tier. I don't think she's an S tier strategist, but she's definitely extremely useful. Her kit is, I mean, you're seeing tons of people throwing down, for pushes. Her invisibility area of effect ultimate. It's just really nice to have. It's very useful. And so obviously I think you're going to see a lot of Invisible Woman this season because she's new, because she's very good, and a lot of people want to, especially, I mean, after a full season. I know it wasn't a full season, but after season 0, some people who main strategists, maybe they've already gotten to Lord on Cloak and Dagger. They're just feeling in the mood to move to something else and try something else out. Maybe they used to be a Luna main, and they want to make a transition into something that's a little bit fresh, and I can't fault them for that. So I think, obviously, this is only maybe S tier, and Luna Snow might be B tier, but you look at the percentage difference here is literally, it's 1.5%. Right? It's 1.5%. So I don't think that you'd be, making a bad choice to play a Luna instead. The only thing about Luna is that she's, and I know this as a dive tank, I would much rather dive on a Luna Snow than dive on an Invisible Woman, because Invisible Woman has, the ability to get out of a bad situation by going invisible, doing her double jump, and that makes her harder to capitalize on when she's out of position, as opposed to a Luna Snow, which when I dive on her as a Thor, it's like, yo, I know. It's all over. I've got this one in the bag, and then I can double back to my team, and they're down a healer. So, anyways, that's our S tier. Storm, Rocket, Invisible Woman. No duelists. No duelists up in the S tier. Yeah, so I'm not sure why they're putting her up in the S tier when her win rate is less than Mantis. But anyways, we move on. Penny Parker, the first tank that we get to. Penny Parker at a 53.56. Penny's strong. I mean, Penny's strong. Her ability to lock down an area and have full area denial, full area control, you have to push her out of position. So people like Invisible Woman, people like Thor, have that ability to sort of force her out and away from her spider's nest. Otherwise, you have to go on wide flanks and get an angle on the spider's nest. I play a Thor a lot, so I use my Rune Awakening. I'll just burn a full Rune Awakening charge to cast a whole bunch of ranged lightning at a spider's nest to get it off the field of play. But otherwise, she can be pretty tough to deal with when you let her turtle up. And of course, obviously, we're doing a lot of domination. And if you pick Penny on defense on a payload, I mean, it's a pretty tough castle to break. So Penny Parker, very strong. She can also dish out a lot of damage with the primary attack. She doesn't have to reload. I mean, that's a big part of it too. She can just keep the fire going. So Penny, pretty strong, pretty strong. Then we have Mantis at a 53.34% win rate. Mantis, the thing about Mantis is, you know, I wouldn't want to go Rocket Mantis combo for your two strategists on your team. Because that's slow healing over time for both of your healers. I think you need one chunk healer. Like you want to have a Cloak and Dagger or a Luna Snow or an Invisible Woman who can just hit you with a shot that immediately gives you a bunch of health. Boom, 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 boom. And you see your health bar go ching, 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 ching. You know what I'm saying? But Mantis and Rocket Raccoon, it's a slow burn on your health regen. So they're kind of hybrid characters. Mantis is really good at dishing out damage, right? So her primary fire has no damage drop off at range. It's very easy to hit. When I play support, I mainly play Mantis just because I know that I can actually contribute on the kills side of things too. So normally a Mantis is going to have a ton of assists, a ton of KOs, and a decent amount of healing. Not as much as a Cloak and Dagger, Luna Snow, Invisible Woman, but still respectable. But anyways, I think people pick her because she's versatile, right? When you need healing, she can do healing. When you want to buff somebody who's going up to pop their ultimate, maybe you've got like Star-Lord's popping his ultimate, you want to buff his damage output, make him burn faster, or maybe you've got Punisher on the team, you want to buff their damage. It's really easy to do. Same thing with Iron Man. So she's very versatile. Whatever you need in the moment, she can give you. If it's support fire, she can give it. If it's healing, she can give it. If it's a buff for your damage output, she can give it. Then we've got Thor, another tank, at a 52.81% win ratio. I main Thor. This is a bit like Vindication. I think people last season were sleeping on Thor quite a bit. But I think, who's the number one Thor in the world right now? Is it Jeremy? I think it might be Jeremy. Jeremy might be the number one Thor in the world right now if he's kept his momentum going. But anyways, Thor's pretty nasty. Bit of a bruiser, can really punish people who are out of position. He can dive on people and control where they're at, so he can kind of kidnap them and take them to a corner and then beat up on them and kind of keep regenerating his temporary health as he does it. He's great for diving on healers in the back line. He can dive on back lines really good. Also, another thing he's really good at is forcing Moon Knights out of position, Hawkeye's out of position. This is one of the things that I focus on the most when I'm a Thor. If I see a Moon Knight on the other team, well, most good Moon Knights are probably going to go up into a high location. They're going to throw their onks down, do just a ton of free damage. Like I try to keep elitism out of the way I think about video games, especially ones as silly as this. But I do kind of have a chip on my shoulder a bit for Moon Knights because it's like, you don't even have to aim. You just throw an onk down, you're just shooting this onk for free area damage. But so anyways, I enjoy pushing them out of position. You don't even need to get the kill, but if you can force a Moon Knight to move, you've done your job pretty well. You've created an opening for your team. But anyways, Thor's really versatile. He can dive on healers. He can force people who play the edges of the map to reposition. He's also really good at peeling off of your backline. So if you've got flankers who are pushing your backline, he's really mobile. So I do this a lot where if I'm in the midline and I start to see that somebody behind me is taking damage, I start charging up that hammer, I turn around, I can just zip over there and immediately peel, like if it's a Venom who's diving our backline, I can peel the Venom off and force him to deal with me while our healers can just go and get the health they need and sort of regroup. So Thor, very strong, very mobile, has a lot of utility. I don't think the Thor-Hulk combo is great. And I'll talk about why in a second. But we've got Hulk up next, 51.56% win ratio. Hulk's very good, but he's similar to Thor in that he's mobile, he can dive the back line, he can cause a problem, he can disrupt, and he can get out. And so they're very similar in that regard, but I wouldn't want a Thor and a Hulk on the same team. You can win with that, obviously. But I think you want either a Thor and a Hulk and then you want like a Strange or a Groot, someone that's a more traditional face tank that's standing in front of the team and stonewalling damage, kind of soaking it all up for your team. Thors and Hulks don't really do that. They're disruptors. They dive in the back, or they dive on people on the flank, so they peel in the back. But they're not really supposed to just stand in front of the team and take damage. You know what I mean? So you do want one of those, and I think that's why Doctor Strange is up next, because Doctor Strange is probably the best, just standard face tank for mobile stuff. Like if you're on offense on payload, you want a Strange on the front of the payload holding up a shield so the healers can walk the payload up and just provide support where they need to. So Strange is very versatile. Obviously, he can get you to the point very quickly with his portal as well. So it's good for positioning. He does pretty decent damage output. I've played with some pretty nasty Doctor Stranges who are face tanking for the team, but they're also outslaying our duelists sometimes. And it's like, dang, okay, you're putting in the work. So Strange has pretty high potential, even if he is, I think, pretty approachable at the base. But in order to escalate and take him to the next level, I think he's got a pretty high ceiling. And if you find somebody who's mastered Strange, they can be a pretty scary person to deal with in the field of play. Next up, we've got Cloak and Dagger. I think Cloak and Dagger is very approachable, very approachable. And I think people maybe they overestimate how complex it might be to play Cloak and Dagger. It's really not that complex. One of your abilities just stays the same. I'll throw a wall out. If I'm Cloak, it's gonna do healing. If I'm Dagger, it's gonna do damage. It's pretty simple just to swap back and forth, and especially now after buff, like you can. I think it's faster actually just to switch to Cloak and then switch back to Dagger than it is to actually reload Dagger. So you just never reload, right? You just throw out you empty your whole quote unquote magazine of light projectiles, swap, and then keep throwing them out. And then when people get in close, obviously you can swap to Dagger. If somebody dives on you, you can go invisible for a moment and just kind of lose their aggro for a second, force them to find a new target. Cloak and Dagger is very approachable, does great healing, can do pretty decent damage when need be, can support your backline quite nicely, and can avoid being dove on. So Cloak and Dagger, obviously very popular. Now we started going to do a lot more duelists into the B tier here, which is interesting that we have Magic. I'm trying to figure out why they put people where they put people. We've got the win rate, right? 53.3% is higher than, Thor's, is higher than Hulk's, is higher than Strange, is higher than Cloak and Dagger. But for some reason is down in the B tier. Anyways, Magic, pretty scary up close. Obviously her combos, the way that she can phase in and out of reality, which makes a lot of your attacks miss, especially if you're a melee duelist or a melee tank. Kind of following her and tracking her movement can be a little bit challenging. So she's really squirrely. She does great damage output. I don't tend to fear her ultimate too much, but that's because I main tank. If you're a squishier character, she can be kind of scary when she's in her ultimate. I think a lot of people, the Magics that I'm playing in comp, what they're really doing is they're trying to focus your backline. They're pretty mobile with their portaling, and so they're trying to get in, past your front line, past your midline, and into your backline where your healers are, or maybe your duelists who are ranged, like your Hawkeyes and your Moon Knights, and that's where they're the most lethal, and they'll chew those people to bits. So I find as a Thor, I'm usually the one that's dealing with Magic, so I'm very comfortable dueling a Magic. That's just because I'm used to peeling Magics off of my back line. So as soon as I see that orange portal, I know, like zip around, fly over there, and immediately just pull them off of our back line. And a lot of them make the mistake, they're so committed to, I just need to get this healer down, They underestimate the mobility of Thor, which is who I main. It makes them pretty easy to do. I'm usually hitting Magics in the back of the head with Mjolnir and chasing them. Anytime they portal, I just zip through and follow them and then keep bashing them in the back of the head. And so usually I can get them down before they can get our healers down. Or if they do get the healers down, at least I'm taking her with them. So anyways, I'm used to dueling her. Moving on to Captain America. There's some scary caps out there. I gotta tell you, I played alongside a pretty scary cap. He's not your traditional tank. I think he's more of a hybrid. He's not just up there putting the shield up and face tanking like a Doctor Strange. But he's really mobile. He sprints fast, jumps high, he dives, and it makes him kind of squirrely, hard to chase. If you're not playing a very mobile character, he can be a pain to deal with. You want to have somebody who can chase him and be a problem for him, but obviously they need support while they're doing it. But Captain America can be pretty scary. I'm not surprised to see him up in the upper echelon of B tier. But I don't think, I think his ceiling is really high. I don't think he's as approachable on a base level as some of the others. I think Strange is a lot easier to play overall. You know, you just shoot your projectiles, hold up your shield, and then detonate your AoE whenever you're charged up too much and try and get some good damage on people. I think Captain America is harder to play because you need to have a little bit more presence of mind. And this is no knock on Strange mains, but I think in order to be a really good Captain America, having a good, a grasp on what's happening in the arena, good game sense, good understanding of positioning and where players are, makes a scary good Captain America, because he is so mobile that the second somebody gets out of position, maybe they're going on a flank they shouldn't be going on, maybe they separate from their team momentarily and they think they've got the time to do it, he can close the gap so fast, right? And he can lead the charge on them and pounce on them. And I think that's what makes him pretty scary. Then we've got Loki. I think a good Loki can be a real pest, just because it's the combination of having all the clones and then having the green healing aura around all of those clones can make him pretty frustrating to play. I play, like I said, Thor. It's really easy to sort of force him to start rabbiting and changing positions when you dive on him. But for a lot of people who aren't as mobile, he can be quite a menace on the field. The only thing is that I think that his ultimate's really situational, because you're trying to pick in the moment whose ultimate you want to steal. I think I would just rather have, like, I think we had a match today where we had him and we had a Luna Snow, and he copied like a Duelist ultimate in the final stand. It was 99% to 99% overtime. The thing's ticking down, and we just needed another, like support ultimate to push on the zone and take it back. We even had a pick, so it was like 6v5. If we just had that ultimate. But he just kind of like looked at who he found in the moment, and he picked, I think it was like a Wolverine ult. And I'm like, that's going to do us freaking no good, man. No good at all. So I think I'd rather just have a Invisible Woman, Cloak and Dagger, Luna Snow, one of their ultimates, even Mantis, where we can just collectively make a push and reliably, consistently count on that being an option. You know what I mean? So Loki's, I think they have a high ceiling. But if it's up to me, I think I want something a little more traditional on my team. Unless we already have like a really good Luna Snow, really good Cloak and Dagger, then maybe that's fine. Mr. Fantastic, a lot of people, again, I think some of this is inflated a bit just because people are playing a lot of him. But he's a duelist, but he's sort of a pseudo tank, isn't he? And I think that the best players who are playing him right now are really good at keeping their temporary health topped off. I will say that I have learned, just when he goes puffed up chest mode, just don't hit him. Leave him be. I think a lot of people are like, I'll just keep hitting so that the second he deflates, I'll get some damage. But I was playing with a great team today, and we were playing against a Mr. Fantastic. And the second he puffed up, there were 3 of us on him. He puffs up, and we all immediately turn away from him and pounced on like a Rocket Raccoon, who was a healer who was supporting him. We pounced on him and killed him. By the time we turned around, he was still fat-chested, like, guys, is anyone going to hit me? And then when he puffed back down, we were all like, now you've got no support. So when he puffs up, just know that's your chance to do something else. Focus on someone else. Even if it's just to turn and hit somebody else with one shot, maybe you're just going to do 30 damage. It's better than feeding him free damage, right? So just turn away, hit something else, then turn back and focus back on him. Adam Warlock, I think especially on payload modes, he's very popular because if you're on defense and you're on the earlier part of the payload round, where when you die and you spawn very far away and you have to make a long run back, that's when he's really useful to revive teammates right on the fly, right on the spot. Or if you're on offense and you're sort of towards the end of your goal, right, and your respawn's really far away, that's when he's most useful. But Adam Warlock's have the capacity to do some pretty decent damage output. They can be kind of respectable in that regard as well. So not surprised to see him pretty far up there. Wolverine, he is a tank buster, right? I don't fear a lot of things as a Thor in a 1v1. Wolverines are one of the things that I fear. A good Wolverine and a good Bucky can be pretty lethal against tanks. With Wolverine, I'm used to just sort of using my Mjolnir dash to get out of there after he tackles me, but all in all, he is a menace to tanks. So he can chew up your anything that doesn't have a shield, right? He can chew up your Thors. He can chew up your Venoms. He can chew up your Groots. Those are the things that he's really scary against. So I find that Wolverine is a reactive pick. Most people in my comp lobbies are not picking Wolverine out of the gate. What they're doing is they're picking somebody else as a duelist, and then on their first death, when they realize they're up against a Groot and a Thor, or a Hulk and a Groot, that's when they're like, all right, it's time to switch to Wolverine and chew these people up, and that's what they do really, really well. So he's a bit of a reactive pick. So if you're dealing with really tanky tanks with lots of health who can get temporary HP and stay in the fight, Wolverine's always a great pick. I don't want to go through this entire thing, so I think next I will just mention a couple things that surprised me. I'm a little surprised to see that Namor is down at a 48.75%, because I think Namor's nasty. I think Namor is a very safe pick for a duelist to do some pretty serious damage. But I think it just might be the fact that I think Namor shines the best in probably gold lobbies. I think Namor shines the best in gold lobbies. But it's when you get up into the upper echelons where I think that Namor eventually caps out, kind of hits a bit of a ceiling. That's not to say there aren't great Namors in the Grandmaster lobbies and whatnot. There certainly are. But I think that Namor does eventually hit a ceiling. His loop is really simple. He's not a very complex duelist to play. And so because of that, I think that his potential is just a little bit lower. And that's why you see some other duelists a little bit higher who can... I would rather have a scary good Wolverine on my team than a scary good Namor on my team. You know what I mean? But I would rather have an average Namor on my team than an average Wolverine. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? But that's kind of where I'm at with that. Anything else surprising? I'm not surprised to see Venom down low. I think that Venom in the upper echelons, people can deal with Venoms. Venom is not too scary. He's just really he survives everything, right? He survives everything. When you get into the upper echelons, people know how to deal with Venoms. You get that initial push where he gets a ton of his HP, and then people know to pounce because he's not going to get it back a second time very quickly. So they'll push him down, see his blue health come up, and then they'll pounce, and they kind of know, okay, now's our moment to take this guy down. That's why he's a high priority. It's people with better game sense that know how to deal with Venom. So I'm not surprised that he eventually caps out his potential. Scarlet Witch doesn't surprise me. She's down there. Scarlet Witch is in the upper echelons. They spend more time ghosting than they do actually doing damage because people know how to deal with them. Especially you probably have someone on your team that's mobile. For me as a Thor, I'm never afraid of a Scarlet Witch because I can dive on her and I've got like a really short cooldown on my dash. You know what I mean? So I'll dive on her and bonk her twice, and then she's like, oh crap, and then she turns into a little floating ball, and I just watch where it goes. And I chase it, and I go bonk as soon as she comes out. And then she's like, oh, crap. She does it again. And she flies in. And I follow it, and I dash to it. As soon as she comes out, bonk, bonk, dead. It's easy. So I'm not surprised that she's kind of low. I think she's better in lower tier lobbies. Squirrel Girl is the same, although I will say that there are some maps specifically where Squirrel Girl is a really good pick. The new map, she's a pretty good pick. A lot of it is hallways. You know, you probably know this. You're going down a narrow street. Then you go down a narrow hallway. It opens up a little bit in the middle around that sort of U-shaped rubble in the subway station. But then after that, you're back into tunnels going down and then coming back up, and then you're back in the street. And so since it's all tight quarters, Squirrel Girl, pretty solid. Pretty solid. By the way, Squirrel Girl mains out there. Dude, if there's a Punisher on the enemy team, shoot the stupid turret. That's what you do. That's your job. Shoot the turret. I had a Squirrel Girl on my team today, and then this Punisher just put up his turret on high ground, and no one would contest him. He's just the entire the whole time. And I'm like, Squirrel Girl, shoot you freaking acorns, the thing, you know what I'm saying? Then I'd go into my Rune Awakening, and I'd be throwing my lightning at it, which gets him usually down to like barely alive, barely alive if I'm hitting most of them. I'm like, I just need somebody else to shoot this thing. Squirrel Girls, you know what to do. Take care of business. Hawkeye's nerf, I think it's more psychological than actual. You know what I mean? I think people are just like, oh, Hawkeye got nerfed, not picking him anymore. He's still really good. Especially, can I guys kind of let you in on something? There's Storm's up. Look at the number one character right now. Look at it. It's Storm. Do you know what the counter to Storm is? The hard counter to Storm? It's Hawkeye. fully charged up shot from Hawkeye. That's the hard counter. So if you've got a Storm on the enemy team, somebody should probably go Hawkeye until she switches. All right. So just a little bit of friendly advice. I played on a team today, and I was like, guys, come on. We had a Storm on the enemy team that ended up with like 35 kills in comp. And my teammates were Magic and Wolverine. Magic. Wolverine. What's the problem with that, guys? You probably already know. None of them have ranged potential. You need to have somebody who can deal with range. Hawkeye is the easiest bet. Sure, a Spider-Man can close the gap, maybe kind of force her out of position. Like a really good Spider-Man can still be pretty scary. But Hawkeye's just easier, right? Even a bronze tier player could equip Hawkeye and land some shots on Storm and force her to go to ground, okay? Anyways, that's where we're at with the current meta. I hope you found this interesting. If you did, then let me know by leaving a like in the video. This is the best free way to support the content right here on YouTube. I've done that spiel way too many times at this point because I've been doing this for 10 plus years. But anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope to see you in the next video. That was a mouthful. Did you follow all that? I don't even know if I followed all that, to be honest. Anyways, bye.